So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of Spring Rest playlist. I'm Abhishek Verma and in today's video we are going to see how to accept the input from the user as a request parameter. We will see how it is different from the path variable and which one we should use. So without wasting more time, let's directly get started and see how the things are going to look like. So now we are in the IDE, and before we start with our today's demo, first of all, let's do a quick recap what we did in the previous demo. For this, I'll go to this demo 4 and from here, I'll go to the UML diagram. Let me increase the size a bit, something like this. I hope now it is much more clearly visible to all of you. So here you see we were having the demo class. Then we were having the exception here, which was a custom exception. Then we were having the controller class. I'll quickly show you the controller class also. Then after this, from the controller class, we were going towards the service layer. In the service layer, we were having interface, then we were having the implementation. And then we were having the repository, which we implemented with the help of Spring Data JP. Besides this, we were having the mapper, which we made with the help of the map struct. We were also having the DTO classes, owner DTO and the pet DTO. Between owner and pet, there was one-to-one mapping, and below the owner DTO, we were having domestic pet DTO and wild pet DTO. We were also having the enums as gender as well as the pet type. Also, if you remember, we were having something like entity classes for which we were having the base class. Now, if you remember, for base, we were not having anything in the database. Then we were having the owner, we were having the pet, again one-to-one relationship. Under the pet, we were having the inheritance, and we were saying there can be a domestic pet or a wild pet. So the scenario was overall something like this. And why is it important? Because for today also, almost everything is going to remain same except the controller class. So first of all, let's quickly see what was there in this controller class. So last time, if you remember, I told you that whenever you want to accept the input with the help of a body, then we use the annotation request body. Then besides this, whenever you want this something as an argument, we make usage of path variable here. So this is the way we can make usage of path variable. Then it is possible that you can make a combination of path variable and request body. Also, it is possible that you can go for multiple path variables and everything is fine. So hence we did the get mapping, put mapping, patch mapping, delete mapping, as well as find all owners. And this post mapping was also there. So all these things we saw in the previous video. Now let's see in today's video what is something new or what is the new way of accepting input in the URL itself and how it is going to be different from the path variable. For this, let me simply close it, and now let's go to this demo file. Now this pom.xml and everything is same. I'll only show you those classes or those interface which are going to be different here. So first of all, we need to go to this repository, and here is my owner repository. So you see that today I have added one new method here. Till last demo, it wasn't available. Till our last demo, owner repository used to be empty and the default methods used to be enough for us. Now in this method, what we are doing is we are doing the query annotation. And here we are saying that we want to fetch the owners as well as pets on the basis of birth date of the pet. So if the birth date of the pet is between a particular start date and end date, then provide us the list of owner. And when I'm saying here list of owner, so also it is going to provide me the associated pet with that particular owner. Yeah. Now if you may say that, okay, Abhishek, you should be also explaining that how to write this query from scratch. The answer is, for that, you should be watching Spring Data JP playlist. There I have explained it in much more detail. But here, this is not the right playlist for that. Then let's go to this service layer. Now in this service layer, you see that I have made it very simple. I have removed all extra methods and I'm only keeping two methods. One is find owner and the other one is find by all owners by pet date of birth between. So again, we will be providing a start date and end date. If we go to this service IMPL here, which will look something like this. So you see this find owner method is exactly same like the last time, and it is making usage of the by default method. So what we were doing, we were saying find by ID. it is going to provide me a owner object. Then I'm making usage of the map and I'm converting it to the owner DTO. And in case owner is not available with this ID, we are throwing the exception owner not found, something like this. Yeah. So this was the old method. Now you will also see that I have removed all other methods like to delete, to update, to find all owners, to save new owners. All those methods have been deleted because now my main focus is to show you the difference, how this new method is going to be different from the existing one. Yeah. So that's the reason. In future videos, if required, we will again add those methods back. Yeah. Then in this new method, what I'm doing is I'm accepting two arguments. Obviously, if you want to find the pets between a date range, then you need two dates, a start date and an end date. Also, we are saying that this start date cannot be after the end date. Otherwise, you see my query is not going to work. Yeah. So the question is till which point you want to keep that particular thing. I mean, do you want to throw the exception from the repository layer or which layer? So better we do those things in the service layer itself. So in this service layer, I'm doing a check that if my start date is after the end date, then in that case, I will be throwing an exception, validation exception. And that is nothing but again, a custom exception only. And for this, I will be providing a method, a message I will be providing. This message, you see, I have mentioned in this messages.properties. Okay. So it will say that start date, this cannot be after the end date, something like this. Okay. So everything is clear. And again, all these things are already mentioned in the previous playlist. Yes. So now you don't say that, okay, Abhishek, you should be showing us how to read from messages.properties file. That's not possible here. Then in case we are satisfying this scenario, okay, then what will happen? It will be invoking the method of the repository layer. From there, I will be getting a list of owner. Then I will be converting it to a stream. And then for every owner, I will be converting it to owner DTO. And I will be returning the list of owner DTO. So you see, there is nothing much in this service method. Again, it is very, very simple. Now, after this, let me just move on towards the next part. And these enums, entity, DTO, and all other classes are same. Only this controller class is also again going to be little bit different from the existing one. Now in the controller class, if you notice here also, again, I have two methods only. And again, if I just go through these annotations, so you see this annotation I just added so that we can auto wire the owner service, sorry. Yeah. Then this is for the request mapping. I want to say that /owners is going to be my base URL. Then with this, I want to say that it is a REST controller and it is going to create a bean for the Spring Boot. Then here you remember we were mentioning it as get mapping. And I told you that the way of writing it will be /owners. And then here you are going to provide some actual ID. This actual ID will be considered as a path variable. It will go here and from there it will go to the service. And this is how the things are going to work. If we are able to find the owner, we are going to return status as OK. And we are going to provide the owner DTO object within the body. In case owner is not found, we are going to say not found, and then we are going to return a particular message. Now, since this method is going to return two different data types, sometimes owner object, sometimes a string, that's why we need to make usage of the question mark. Although this is not a good practice, in the upcoming videos, we will see what is much better way of handling the exceptions. As of now, since you are learning, so as of now, our goal is to keep it simple. In the upcoming videos, when my main focus will be on exception handling, then I will show you what is the correct way. As of now, just assume this is the right way. Now, this is my second method, the new method. So here also you see, I'm again accepting two arguments, local date as well as this particular local end date. Now here you see that whatever I'm getting, I'm just passing it to the service layer method. Then if everything is fine, I will be getting a list and I will be returning as OK with that particular list. In case I will be getting a validation exception, then also I'm saying OK with the error message. Now, first of all, let's try to fix it. In case I'm getting an exception, do you think I should be returning OK? Don't you think I should be returning something better? What do you suggest me? Tell me in the comments what should be the status code which you feel I should be providing here. Okay, should I be saying not found or what? Okay, so for this, what I will do is I will do something like this and I will see some better. So I will consider it as conflict. Okay, so I will say that for this particular one, I will be saying status as conflict, because obviously it's a kind of a conflict that how your start date can be after the end date. So I consider this as a conflict. Again, there is no hard and fast rule for this. You can say it as bad request also or anything else also. I will consider this one. Yeah. Then after this, the next particular part is obviously the annotation. You will say, okay, Abhishek, what's big deal in it? We will just copy and we are going to paste here. Then obviously, since this is start date and end date, so then we need to accept these two things also. So here we are going to say something like this, copy, and I'm going to provide here something like this. Then I will be saying here slash, I will be saying here again this particular one, and I'm going to say here end date. So yeah, that's how it was. So simple. For this only you created one more demo. What was the need of it? I mean, why do we need anything else? It's so simple. We can just provide it something like this. The thing is, obviously you can provide it something like this, but do you think it is readable? The answer is it's not much readable. Okay, or at least first try to understand whether this one is even going to work or not. Okay, for this particular purpose, what I will do is I will directly just simply save this particular class and let me just execute the code from here. So we have started this demo number 5 and let's see whether this particular one is going to work or not. So here, if we go here, this one says that, okay, it has started the demo. And now let's go to this particular one in the Postman. So what I'll do is, you see, for demo 4 already we have, I'll just copy this one and I will be saying here duplicate something like this. Then from here, I'm going to say it as the new one. I will say it as demo number 5. Then I will be removing the unwanted things. So we are not going to save owner here. So let me just delete it. We are not going to update the owner. So let's delete that too. We are not going to update pet details. So remove that too. Neither I wish to delete. So let me remove that too. And also there is nothing like find all owners. So let's remove that too. Okay. Again, it's not an hard and fast rule that whatever is there, same needs to be here. But obviously it should be something like this only. Otherwise, how the things are going to work. So now you see when I'm saying here 90, this is my first one. So when I'm saying here 90, it says 404 not found. And then it is going to provide me some error message like this. Can't find owner with owner ID 90. If I just make it as 9. Okay, now let's see. So with 9, it says 200. Okay, and this is the data. So which means this one is still working fine. Now what we are going to do is we are just going to copy it and we are going to create a new one. So let me just paste it here. And what I will be doing is that in this one here, we need to provide the date. So initially, let me provide the date as something like this. I will be saying 2010. It is going to be my start date. Okay. Then I'm going to say here 01. I'm going to say here 01. So this is 1st January 2010. Then again a slash I will be saying here. Then I'm going to say here 2020. And then I'm going to say here 12. I'm going to say here 12. I mean, randomly I have provided a date. So this is from 1st January 2010 till 12th December 2020. And now let's click on the send. So you see that, okay, we are getting some kind of exception here that, okay, this one is not working fine. So now let's try to understand that what can be the reason that this thing is not working. For this, let's go to this here, and here if we just scroll a bit, so we see it says a null pointer exception, and then it says cannot invoke this local date is after something here. So the point which it says, I mean, first of all, again, you will say that, okay, Abhishek, explain us from detail how you identified this issue. So the rules are very simple. First of all, whatever is your last exception, just go through it, something like this, and try to identify the class which you have actually coded. So currently I don't see any, and the latest thing which I can see is the owner controller. So I coded this particular one. So I click here. It means that my control is at least coming here, which means I'm on the right track. But from here, if you see, I'm going to this particular line number 42. And here, this start date is coming as null. And hence it is saying it as null pointer exception. Now the question is why this start date is coming as null? Why it is not able to point this same particular variable with this particular thing. The reason is that although your names are same, but you didn't made usage of this path variable annotation.
शाबाश बेटा, बहुत बढ़िया.
So this is something which we need to make usage here. So here we need to say path variable, and again here we need to say path variable, and now this is going to look something like this, guys. Okay, now let's again execute the code. So let's go here and let's again restart. So again and again, if you will try from here, then you can simply restart. Otherwise you need to stop and then you need to restart the things. So yeah, I guess it has started the things, and let me just clear it. So like this you can just clear, so that next time if there is any exception you can directly check that one. So now let's again give it a try, something like this, and yeah, this time you see it is working fine. So here now it is going to provide me some output. So here we can verify this birth date is exactly between our range. Then this particular birth date is also fine. This is also fine. This is also fine. This is also fine. This one is also fine. Okay, it is 2810 and we started from the 1st January 2010. So that means this one is also working fine. And if this is working fine, what I will do is I will say here find owner. So I will be saying here find owner by pet, and then I'm going to say here date of birth. So this is how, and I'm going to save it within this demo 5. I will be saving here as save. Okay, so this works fine. But then there is a small problem. REST is not about working fine. Okay, if you remember when I was explaining you what is REST, I told you that in REST there is no direct protocol as such. So whatever you are going to code, most of the time it is going to work fine if you are following some of the minimal rules. Yeah, like here you saw that first we forgot to add this @path variable, hence it threw us some kind of exception. Then we added path variable and it started working fine. But if something is working fine, doesn't mean it is actually fine. You see, REST is an architectural style. Now, if I will just provide you this particular URL, then can you tell me what is the meaning of this URL? The answer is no. You won't be able to tell me. You will be saying that, okay, it must be doing something with the owners. It may be the owner date of birth, or it may be the owner login time or something like this, or the date on which owner account was created. So from the URL, it is not much clear what this particular URL is doing. So the main thing is, first of all, we should make our URL much more readable, so that by just looking towards it, you should be able to tell what it is doing. So how to do is something like this. So here, first of all, this date of birth is not for the owner. It is for the pet. So what I can do is I will say here something like this pets. Yeah. So now at least it will be a bit clear that these date of births don't belong to the owner, but actually the pets of the owner. Then here again, what is this date? It can be anything. We are not clear which is this particular date. Okay. So what I wish to say here, I will be saying here something like filter by DOB. Okay. So I will try to make my name something more readable like this. If you wish, you can just say something this only, pets date of birth. So this is also going to work fine. No hard and fast rule. Okay. So even if you are saying this, so I'm saying pets, then I'm saying DOB. Obviously, I'm providing 2 dates. So obviously it must be filtering something. But still the point is, it's not much readable. Because even if you will say something like this, pets DOB, now who will tell you that, okay, which is start date and which is end date? Even that is still not clear. Yeah. So we can make it something like this, start date, and then we should be doing it something like this, end date. Yeah. And then I should be saying here slash. And now let me just copy this particular part from here. Let me show you the same thing in this particular one. And what I'll do is I'm going to paste it in this particular part. Okay, pets DOB, then I'm going to say here start date, and start date is going to be this particular one. And here I'm going to say here end date, and in this end date, the should be capital. I should be saying here again a slash. Okay, now you see this one is much more readable. Okay, let me bring it or what I can do is I can just show you here. Obviously it doesn't matters, but yeah, now at least we can make it more bigger. Okay, so sometimes you say that, okay, Abhishek, this is smaller. Okay, so it's a bit smaller to read from here. Now I hope it's much more bigger. So this is how it is going to look like, guys. Yeah, the local host and something, at least it's much more readable than the previous thing. Do let me know in the comments, yes or no. Okay, so if your answer is yes, then yeah, the truth is it is readable, but we can still make it much more better. Okay, so what we can do is that instead of making usage of these path variables, we can make usage of the request param. Okay, so now how does request param is going to work? Request param is going to do some magic. Okay, first of all, let me show you what it will do, and that is going to be the new way of reading from the arguments. Okay, so here instead of path variable, we are going to say request param annotation. Okay, now let me just simply copy and let me provide it something here, request param, and let me say like this, request param. You will say that, okay, Abhishek, now what's the big deal? Earlier you were saying here path variable, now you are saying request param. What is the major change? The major change is that now your URL is going to be this, and that is the magic, guys. Okay, so now in your URL you don't need to tell what is your variable name, and you don't need to even tell all those extra things like start date and something, because if you remember, when we wrote something like this, although my URL was readable, but the point is I have to write so many things and my URL was looking much more bigger. Everything I had to write with my hands, but now it is going to become much more simpler. Let me show you how this one is going to work. So let me again restart this one, and I hope it has restarted. Let's go to this particular one. Let me remove this part from here completely, and here we don't again need this, that I just shown you for the example purpose. And yeah, this is how it is going to look like. Here also I don't need to provide anything, and I just need to say something like this, date of birth. Okay, owners, pets, and then I'm saying date of birth. So here also it has started. Let me clear this particular part and let's go back to this one. So yeah, let's execute it, and this is going to work something like this. Okay, it says owners, pets, date of birth, and it says bad request. Why? So currently it is saying bad request. It is not working, guys, but here if you see, I have mentioned it clearly, pets and then date of birth, something like this. What's the issue here? So if we go to this one, it says that required request parameter start date for this. It says this start date was required, but it is not available. But the question is how to provide. I didn't made those variables and anything here. So how can I provide it? So the answer is that in order to provide, this time what you need to do is you need to put up a question mark here. So instead of a slash, now this time it is going to be your question mark. And then you are going to say here start date. And then after this, you are going to say here something like this, 2010, then -01, hyphen again 01. So this is the way now you are going to provide your start date. The important thing to learn from here is that now we are starting our arguments or our request params with this question mark. And instead of slash, now we are saying equal to. So clearly we are saying that this date will go to this start date. Okay, now let's again execute. So again it says there is some error. What is the error, guys? Okay, so this time if you see, the error is something, let's again go back here. Now it says end date is not available. So how to provide end date? So since end date is going to be a second argument, so you are going to say here and symbol. Whatever is the number of arguments, you just need to say and symbol. Okay, and then you can say here end date, something like this. It is going to be your 2020, then it is going to be -12 and -12. Yeah, and now let's execute the thing. So you see that again we are getting the correct answer here. So my answer is still correct. I'm again only getting 6 employees here. Okay, so this is the way. Another interesting part which I wanted to show you here is that when you make usage of request params instead of path variable, then the thing is that if you go to this params tab, so earlier there was nothing in the params tab. Now if you go to this params tab, whatever the things you have mentioned here, same thing will get listed out here automatically. So in the reality, now when you are making usage of request param, you don't need to provide all the things here. You can just write it something like this, and you can just simply start providing the things here. Start date, and see, automatically it got typed there. So you don't need to remember this particular sequence, okay? And then you can mention, you just need to remember that the format should be correct here. So this one, and then I can make here this second. So you keep eye on that particular part. You see this end date, and here I can provide my second date, which is going to look something like this, 12/12. Also, if you see, I can remove it from here. It will get removed there. Okay. Also, what I can do is I can change this particular sequence. So, okay, it's not getting changed from here. Let me do. So I will provide end date first, and then I can mention here start date. Okay. So even this one is going to work here, guys. Okay. So now you see that this particular part is also going to work fine. First, you can provide end date, then you can provide start date. Will it throw any kind of exception? The answer is no, because later on you are mapping them to the correct variables. Okay. So this is the power of your request param. You can make usage of this params. Now you have seen basically three different ways. In the initial one, when I used to say request body, I used to provide something in the request body by saying here raw and then JSON. That was number one way. Number two way was directly provide something here. And number three is with the help of these params, because these are going to be a request param. And there can be any number of request params. Like it can be A, then it can be something like B, and it can be anything. The number, it will keep on getting separated by this ampersand symbol, and order doesn't matter here. Yeah. Obviously, if you are going to provide something extra, it is not going to work here. Yeah. Now, something more interesting which I want to show you after this. Let's say that at some point of time, I forget to provide this end date. Okay. I'm just saying that, okay, I just want to provide the start date. I don't want to provide the end date. Now, what do you think what will happen? I'm only providing one argument here. So now if I will click on send, you see it is not working. Why? Because by default, when you make usage of this request param, then this is mandatory. So we can go to this request param, and here you can see that there is a field required, and by default it is true. So what you can do is you can just simply copy this one and you can paste here into this particular part. So I'm saying I don't want to provide my end date. Okay. So this is how it is going to look like. And here I'm going to say here false. So now I'm saying the end date is not mandatory. Okay. So now let me again execute something here. So after this, it is not going to be mandatory to provide your end date. So now if I execute the same thing again, let me again execute. So, okay, it again says internal, but this time it doesn't say bad request. Now it says internal server error. The reason is that why it is not saying bad request, because here, although you said that this second particular part, that is end date, is going to be false, you don't need it. But later on, at least your code needs it at this particular point of time. Okay. So which means that if you are not providing it from here, then you need to you need to either make it optional in the service layer, or you need to think of some particular default date. So let's think of something. So what we will do is I will say it something like this. I'm going to say here if objects dot is null. So I'm going to say here is null, and I'm going to say this end date. So by default, when you are not going to provide it, is going to be null. So I'm saying whenever this end date is going to be null, at that point of time, I want to set an end date on my own. So I will be seeing here this local date, and then I'm going to say here this particular of, and you can decide whatever the date you wish. So I wish to say here 20, let's say we wish to keep it as 2020. This is going to work. And here, let me see here 01, and here, let me see here 01. Yeah. So this is the end date which I wish to keep. So now if you are not going to provide the end date, this will be considered. So let me again just save it and provide it from here. So let's again see what it will do. So I will show you two things. Okay. And I hope our filters are going to work fine, because I'm not sure. So first of all, let's provide this one and then see what it will do. So here with this, you see it is going to return me, okay, all these 6 employees. Yeah, I guess we should be making it a bit smaller. So let me decrease the criteria as 2014. Okay, so I will be making it something like this so that we can clearly see the difference. So I will do it this one, and here I'm saying this one, save it, and now let me again execute. But at least you saw it is working fine. Okay, I'm just changing it so that I can show you the actual difference between this default one and the real one. So here, let me again just simply clear it. Let's go to this one and let's again give a try. So when we are only providing the start date, you see here that it is going to show you ID 4, ID 5 and ID 6. Only 3 employees it is going to show you. Yeah, not more than 3. Now, if you provide here something like this end date, and then you see here that is 2020, and we are going to say -12, and now let's give it a try. Okay, so with this one, you see ID 1, ID 2, then we have ID 3, ID 4, ID 5, and ID 6, which means when we are providing something with this date, then this will be considered 6 employees are getting fetched. When we don't provide, that is, if I just make it something like this, then in that case, it is only going to fetch me 3 employees. That is 6, 5, and 4. Okay, so in this case, it is going to take the default one. Something more interesting I want to show you. Okay, now you see the point is that if we can make it required as false, but then the drawback is that at some point of code, we need to mention and something like this. And it doesn't look nice. Okay, frankly speaking, it's not at all nice. Okay, to provide it something like this, that first you are checking whether it is null. If null, then set this particular date and something. I mean, anyone can set anything. Okay, so instead of it, what else you can do is that within the request param, there is something like default value also. Okay, so this default value exists, and what you can do is you can make it as default value. So the moment you are going to say it as default value, automatically it is going to become optional. Okay, and now with this default value, it is always going to accept as a string. So whether it's a local date, int, or whatever, it's always going to be this one. So let me write it something like this, guys. Okay, and now let me remove this part of the code. So see, now isn't it looking better? So now what I'm saying is that this local date is optional. So the moment I'm providing a default value, I mean to say that this one is optional. And when you are not providing, then this should be considered as the date. I don't need any if else condition or something like this. Okay, and you can do it for both the arguments or whatever the number of arguments. I'm just showing you for one of them. Okay, so this is the one. So let's go to this one, and here as of now it is not selected. Let's again click on this, and you will see it is still working fine. 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and if I again select this, then it should be showing me 6 employees. So 1, then 2, then 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now it is showing me 6. Something more interesting. What if we make both of them as optional? Okay, so I'll copy this one here, and I'm going to provide to this particular one as here, and let me just format it a bit, something like this. Now it is looking better. Here let me make it as 2010, and by default and we consider as this one. Okay, so now this is default. For both of them, I have given some default. Only thing which you need to ensure is that don't give wrong values, so that you only keep on getting the conflict. Okay, that should not happen when you are providing something like this. So now we are doing this way, and now if let's see, yeah, it has started. Let's go back here, and let me just simply remove both of them. Now it is only pets and dob, and now if I will click on this one, then again you see it is giving me the correct output. Okay, why? Because automatically it is taking a start date, it is taking an end date. If you wish, you can only provide the end date, and then start date is default one, end date is something which is given by you. If you wish, you can provide both of them. You can just keep on playing with the combinations, and trust me, this one is going to work here. Okay, so this is how we learned a new way of providing the input, that is request param. Not only the new way of providing, but I also told you how to make a default value and all these things. Now, the important question. The important question is that should we go for this request param or should we go for the path variable? What do you feel? You tell me in the comments now. Which one is more preferred for you? Do you feel this path variable is preferred or you feel request param is preferred? Okay, I'll give you a moment and let's meet after some time.
One eternity later.
So now I hope that you must have answered something in the comments. Okay, if not, then it's not going to be my fault. Yeah, but I was hoping that you should be answering something. So my verdict is that the correct point is that you should be learning both of them. It's not a case that you should be learning this or you should be learning this. The reason is, if you see, request param is something which you can only use at the end. So if you notice, whenever we mention it something like this, I can't say something this particular way, /abc. My request param always needs to be the last part of my URL. So you can't have it in between. That is number one drawback of your request param. Many times you want your URLs to be in that particular way. But if you remember, for this particular find owner, let's say, I can just make it something like this. Owners 90 and then say pets. And what I want to say is I want to find owner with ID 90. And for that, I just want to find the pet. So then it can be a thing. Obviously, as of now, it is not mapped, so this is not going to work. But here you can say something like this. But your request param, that is not going to work. So your request param always needs to be the last argument. Yeah. So that was one of the major differences. Hence we say it is not a scenario that you should always go for the request param. You always need to think as per the requirement. So generally, when we say whenever your requirement is such that you want to search something, it is something like a search criteria. Okay. Generally, you see that you go to the Amazon website, or I mean, why to even think of the Amazon website? Let me show you something more interesting. Let's go to this Google, and here let me just provide you something as online, and then let me see here online notepad, something like this. Okay. So when I say this, you see this is the URL. Let me copy it. Let's go back to this particular one. And yeah, I have already pasted the same thing again here earlier. So what it does is, if you clearly see, it is also making usage of request params, because that was actually my request. On the Google, there was nothing just online notepad which I wanted as it is. It was my random search. It can be any output. So generally, whenever you are having some searches like this, then you make usage of these request params and everything. But when you want to get something concrete, when you know that, okay, for this ID only I want, for this particular name only I want, then you make usage of path variable. But again, there is no hard and fast rule. You can make usage of anything. At the end, remember, REST is just an architectural style. It is not, saying you, it is not a kind of a protocol which is going to force you. It is up to you to make REST the best. Okay. Otherwise, by default, REST is also the best. So I hope you learned something new today. If yes, do like the video, share it with your friends so that we can grow our community, and see you in the next one with one more way of accepting the inputs. Bye bye.